Do you have confidence right now that children and adults within Gloriavale are safe?
The answer to that is very simple, Michael. 100% no, 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 no.
Why do you say that?
Because they're not free.
One of the most obvious things about driving into Gloriavale is just how remote this community is. It's 3 hours drive from Christchurch, but is really in the middle of nowhere, and probably by design in a way. They're an isolated group and they want to remain isolated.
Isolation, segregation, control.
They are not free. They are slaves to a cult system. Period. That's it.
Amid renewed government scrutiny of child safety at Gloriavale, we've come here to speak with Clem Ready.
While they're slaves to a system which is Bible-based, but it's been weaponized to work against them. This is not God's plan as expressed in the New Testament. This is not the way God wants his children treated.
That system, as he calls it, is something Ready, who's lived here 30 years, knows plenty about. He was deeply embedded in it for years. He even followed various child discipline teachings, including thinking that it was acceptable to cover the airways of babies to prevent them crying.
And what do you think of that practice now, looking back in hindsight?
Criminal behaviour.
Did you practice it?
Yes, I did.
And how do you feel about that, knowing that?
Awful. Awful.
And why did you practice it?
While you're a young parent, you're impressionable, you're vulnerable, and you're dominated by a person who is very skillful, very artful in what they're doing.
That person was Gloriavale's founder, Hopeful Christian.
I've apologised to my children for the practice. I'm revolted by it. I'm just like, how could I ever do that?
He says people that are born into the Gloriavale system are essentially trapped, while thinking they are following God.
Is Gloriavale a Christian community?
Absolutely not. That's a joke. That is a total joke. In actual fact, I'm going to be very, very naughty here and say I call Gloriavale Gulag Vale.
That's what you think this is, a prison?
Absolutely. Totally. Absolutely. Sorry, Gloriavale people, but I mean what I say. It's not glorious. It's Gulag. It's a prison.
Ready is scathing of Gloriavale and says he is repulsed by its leaders and what it stands for. But this is where his story is unusual. He still lives on the grounds here with his wife Sharon inside this workshop.
This is just outside our home, which used to be an aircraft hangar, and now it's a kind of like a bigger machinery workshop.
A workshop where the clanging of machines is constant.
So I hope you can hear me over the background noise, but just an interesting fact, when these tractors, heavy vehicles, trucks, etc. have their motors running, the exhaust fumes just collect up in our living space because there are no ceiling fans.
His living space is past the fuel containers and heavy machinery to a mezzanine floor above the workshop.
And here we have a little area, freezers and a storage cabinet and just storage. So the noise that you can hear in the background that operates outside the woodwork shop, and it's obviously separating the dust out of the air. Only trouble is it makes a terrible noise. Not nice.
Not nice, but this is Ready's reality now. His questioning of Gloriavale's system and its leaders led him to being shunned. He may live in a workshop on site, but isn't allowed to interact with the wider community. He says Sharon, formerly a teacher at Gloriavale's school, was next to fall out with the leaders after admitting she continued her relationship with Clem, who in the eyes of the leaders was a dissenter.
Sharon was approached by Howard Temple and he asked her, "Are you sleeping with your husband?" And she thought, well, that's a reasonable question, and so I'll give an honest answer. She said, "Yes, I am." So that was the basis for her removing her from her teaching position.
Despite the conditions and Gloriavale's efforts to kick them out, they are refusing to leave.
Why are you still there then? Why stay on the land where you've become this outcast and so vocal in your criticism?
Oh, Michael, that's the $100 question or the $1 million question. So we have our youngest daughter is buried in the graveyard.
Their youngest, Prayer Ready, died aged 14 after choking on a piece of meat while in a so-called isolation room.
My wife is very devoted to her memory. So leaving Gloriavale, which is never going to happen, and it's a way of her maintaining her connection. Another strand would be economically, we cannot leave. We haven't got the means. It's all been robbed from us. It's been stolen from us, and there's never been any realistic attempt to make up for a combined 100 years Sharon and I put into the community of earnings and energy. And you get to a certain age, we can't start over. And also, we've lived here for 30 years. This is our home.
But it's a home where Ready doesn't see his children and hasn't even met most of his grandchildren.
You've got 12 children. Do you have access to see them all? Are any of them still here at Gloriavale, or are they all left?
No, there are 3 daughters who live here, and that is a very big sorrow, because actually when Sharon was addressed by Howard, she knew the price that she was paying, and it involved the fact that from here on in, she would not be able to have any relationships with her daughters, and amongst those daughters, there must be close to 30 grandchildren. So some of those grandchildren we have never seen. We've never been introduced to them. The parents are afraid. The leadership says, no, you can't do this.
He still worries about child safety here, saying oranga tamariki and police staff who visit regularly risk being misled by the leaders.
They don't know how much this is just like a play, a pantomime. It's just a deceptive maneuver to obscure the truth.
So when the officials go away, do you think the situation is different?
It just reverts back to what it was.
Clem Ready believes Gloriavale is built on deceit, where a cycle of control and manipulation has been ongoing. He says Gloriavale has caused huge damage. Damage, he says, will continue as long as the community is open and as long as the people living within it have no choice over how they live their lives.
Social Development Minister Louise Upston has told the Herald she won't rule out closing Gloriavale amid ongoing concerns. But Ready wants to see action now.
So Minister Upston wants to meet with the new overseeing shepherd in the new year. But do you think that's wise or will be a useful exercise?
Excuse me, that's a joke.
Why do you say that?
Because he's going to spend all his time between now and then preparing for that meeting to convince her that Gloriavale is viable. So I get it that the minister is showing care and concern, and thank you for that, Minister. But it needs to go way, way deeper. You need to get down and actually find out the truth. Don't come to Gloriavale and bring your comfortable office, your comfortable home life with you. Come and face the harsh realities of what life here is all about. Ask the hard questions. Do the hard thinking. Don't be conned. Don't believe everything you hear.